Thank you everyone for joining us for what is a really interesting and exciting conversation, kind of like on how to start a proper and good online strategy. So before we get into any of the conceptual stuff or the discussions that we're going to have, why don't we just go through our speakers and you can tell us a little bit about who you are. So Chris, would you like to start?
Hey, Chris Bradford here. I'm out in New Orleans, Louisiana, working with Tim Bertrum here at Optimized Consulting. And, we have been working on digital political campaigns for the past 7 years now. And so working with a lot of top clients, especially in the liberty movement, such as Thomas Massey, Australian Taxpayers Alliance, and Young Americans for Liberty, and many others. So looking forward to the conversation.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much for that. Carrington, would you like to go next?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks for watching today. My name is Carrington Bingham. I'm Managing Director of Digital Campaigns Agency Agenda C. And I've had over 12 years of experience running digital campaigns for politics, advocacy groups and government departments, most recently with New South Wales Government and Queensland Government, and also the Australian Small Business Ombudsman. So these are the sorts of digital campaigns that I engage with.
Wonderful. I think there's a lot that you can teach us. And last but certainly not least, Tim, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you. Tim Bertrum. I'm partners here with Chris Bradford at Optimized Consulting. We specialize in online fundraising. We do online engagement campaigns as well. However, that's really where we found our niches with the online fundraising. So typically what we're servicing are people that are the hardcore liberty guys across the globe now. So like Chris said, Australian Taxpayers Alliance, Thomas Massey, Young Americans for Liberty. If you're advocating for the ideas of liberty, we're helping you raise money online.
Yeah, sounds terrific. Certainly, we're appreciative for everything you help us with. And so I think what we're going to do now is we're just going to get started. And I think the best way to get started is with some of the more engaging presentations that we have prepared. So why don't we start off with Carrington? I understand that you wanted to give your intro with a presentation. Is that correct?
Yes, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So why don't you go ahead and share your screen. Chris and Tim, if you wouldn't mind muting yourselves during this so there aren't skips in video. And all right, Carrington, the floor is yours. Take it away.
Now, can everyone see my screen?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, excellent. All right, I'll run through it. So what is a digital campaign? A campaign is something that is not created through the media. It is something that is created with original ideas and action. And those original ideas force an original action for your audience to drive change through digital platforms. Now, if you're doing worthwhile things, the audience will come to you and so will the media. If you're not doing worthwhile things, they won't, and your campaign is boring and it's not connecting or resonating with your relevant audiences that you're trying to target. You have to create an original idea that has substance and something that people can hold on to that can shift and change their attention. Just a quick little icebreaker. What a lot of people don't know is that you actually get most of your news now each morning through the mobile phone, through digital methods, not through newspapers or other billboards or anything else, TV, broadcast media. You're actually getting it through your mobile phone. And this is some stats from census data here in Australia, not Census, the government organisation Census, the organisation that belongs to Telstra. And you can see that most people do get their news in the morning and after work in the evening through their mobile device. Just moving on to the next screen. Just having some trouble. Here we go. 50% of Australians use social media while watching TV news programs. Another really interesting stat. So if you really want to try and drive your digital campaign home, try to do it while people are watching TV at the same time so that you can get their attention. As you would know, most of your friends, when they come over, or your family members, are at home on the couch, on their phone and watching TV at the same time. It's the new modern age in which we live in, especially during COVID. in Australia, city versus country, there isn't much difference. We know that 88% of metropolitan audiences are using their mobile device, along with 85% of regional. So there's not much difference there. So why use social media? Well, it's easier, fast and rapid communications, real-time news broadcasts, event opportunities. You can grow a database of advocates to drive change and engagement. You can drive more reach, more cost effectively than print advertising, a much more wider reach than print media. And you can cluster certain interest groups and subgroups. So that way you can target specific
Carrington, I think you're, sorry to interrupt you, but I think your microphone just muted. Would you mind unmuting yourself real quick? Sorry about that.
Okay, can you hear me
There
now?
we go. Yes, sorry about that. Take it away.
Very strange. Okay, so just to continue that on, you can obviously create grassroots activism through social media. There's a number of tools at your disposal to do that with, different social platforms, change.org petitions, and I'm sure the fundraising guys will talk more about that as well. You can tell your own story, your own narrative, become your own media channel. Don't let anyone else tell your narrative for you. Have the empowerment to tell your own story yourself through your own digital platforms, especially for campaigns. So back to this again, building a campaign on social, you have to have original ideas with original content that is created to build that political or capital for your brand. A campaign is not something that is created through the media. I just want to reiterate that again. A lot of people think that if they get a news story up with the media, that makes them something special to behold. When it becomes a campaign, it's not. You need to be able to have different messaging content to speak to different audiences that are relevant to your campaign. What social channels do you use? Well, obviously these are the top 4 social channels in Australia to use at the moment, excluding TikTok. TikTok is a great little channel if you want to be fun and be creative in a different way. So certainly do use TikTok if you think it's relevant for your audience. But if it's not, use these top 4 channels. These are the audience channels that most people use today in this country, and these are the best ways that you can connect with your audience. As you can see, if you're taking some screenshots, use those little bullet points to help guide your digital campaign. So you might hear a lot that content is king. It's not. That's bullshit. Audience is king, not content, because content means nothing unless you have an audience. So you need to understand who your audience is that you're targeting. When you segment that audience up, you need to know who it is that's against you, the antis. Who is your base of supporters? So who are the people that are most likely interested in your content that they can help understand, that they can resonate, that they can share with their friends, their family members in order to create change? And who are the soft people? The people in the middle, the people who are unsure, that might swing one way or the other. These are the really important ways to segment your audience for a campaign. What might that look like? Well, that might look like the workers. Are they blue-collar workers, tradies? Tradies are influential amongst their mates. They tend to use WhatsApp as a social channel more than anywhere else. Yes, you can't advertise on WhatsApp for the moment. Yes, Facebook are looking at making that work into the future. They were supposed to have done it by now, 2 years ago. Not sure what's holding them up there. But tradies are a big audience that you can speak to. This is just an example. I'm not saying these are the audiences that you need to speak to. Families would definitely be one audience, though, that you would want to try and connect with and resonate with the right content for them. Know the types of families in your electorates and in your areas. What are their demographics? What are their interests? Why are you targeting them? What's the point? What are you trying to get them to do? Modern mums is another one. Modern mums are big decision makers in the family, and they're very influential amongst their peer groups.
Hey, Carrington, so this is very interesting. Thank you so much. We'll get back to the rest of your presentation in a little bit, if that's all right.
Sure,
but I want to have a chance to get everyone else who wants to kind of give their intro to do it now. So if you could just stop sharing your screen for 1 sec, we can, yeah, very interesting stuff. All right, thank you so much. And we're going to move on now to the second presentation that we have. which is Tim's. So Tim, if you can go ahead and unmute yourself, share your camera, and the floor will be yours. Share your screen, pardon me. Oh, yep, there you are. We see your screen.
Okay, great. Let's do this. Okay, great. So let's talk about raising money online. So that's what we specialize in. Again, we've raised over $10 million now for our clients, Young Americans for Liberty, Justin Amash, Representative Thomas Massey, ATA, and several others now throughout our time in online marketing. And it's become really important all of a sudden. So mail is failing to get the results that it used to. I'm not anti-mail, but I do think that digital fundraising is more the path of the future than mail. It's expensive. You can get a lot more data and measure a lot more things when using digital fundraising via email or Facebook ads or Google search. And COVID-19 has also made it extremely difficult for in-person fundraising all of a sudden. So people are turning to digital, and I know a lot of fundraising professionals are worried in this time, like, am I going to lose out on those in-person meetings? Well, there's actually a pretty good way to use digital to upgrade some of your bigger donors that I'll show you here a little bit down the presentation. But another thing that digital allows you to do is you can just measure your results much better. You can see the kind of cost per lead that you're getting. You can see, okay, did they convert to subscribe to my email list? Okay, did that person actually convert to become a donor? Those are the kind of the metrics that we're taking a look at. That mail, you can get some metrics back, but digital just allows you to do a lot more. So there's a few tactics that we like to use for fundraising online. Email marketing, I'm sure you guys, everyone's inbox is just packed with junk mail all day long, but email still works great. Deliverability continues to be a challenge that a lot of online marketers have to face. So employing best practices is always an important part of email marketing, but Facebook advertising, text messages, I'm sure that you guys have started to see that people are more and more turning to text messaging for marketing and for online fundraising, and then doing list rentals, rev shares, and then just doing a few basic things on your website to make sure that you're actually capturing leads and converting people down to become a donor. So those things are really important. We are going to talk about lead generation here for a moment. So a lot of marketers, I think they generate a lot of leads, they grow someone's email list, and all of a sudden, oh great, I've got 100,000 email subscribers, but I can't really seem to get into inboxes, and I'm not really raising funds off of this. Just because you're running a lead generation campaign and you're getting a low cost per lead of 30 cents of $1, that doesn't necessarily mean it's actually going to benefit your organization. If you're going to run lead generation ads for people that you want to become actual supporters of your organization, you might want to try to find an issue that is going to be someone that is prepared to give, someone that's really bought into your organization or your campaign. So just because you're running lead gen and you're getting a cheap cost per lead, that's not the ultimate metric. The ultimate metric is, did I convert this person to becoming an email subscriber, and did they actually become a donor? Otherwise, they're just kind of dead weight on your list. So we like to try to find issues that we believe will get people on our email list at a reasonable rate, but also become an ultimate supporter of the organization as well. Fundraising ads. So I really like to push people to do as many video fundraising ads as possible. As I'm sure you guys have seen, if you scroll through Facebook, you scroll through Instagram, you're basically just seeing all videos, right? Facebook is really favoring all kind of video content, and that's true with ads as well. We like to even shoot ads where the video content itself is not even the highest quality. We like to have videos where there's a real authentic voice to it, and you can see like, oh, this person actually did, like they took an iPhone and they filmed this video and they put it on Facebook, And it just gives the organization or the candidate a much more authentic and real voice that people feel a lot more bought into. So if your organization has someone that they can especially kind of assign the face of the organization to, getting that person on video, and it does not have to be this highly produced video. Those are great and they work, but it's better to have these quick videos than it is to have nothing. So these fundraising videos work great. Obviously, some of the tactics to include: give them a goal, give them a deadline, obviously having the script, getting a little movement in that video too is really going to help keep eyes on there. Whereas just kind of a static video of someone standing still and reading off a teleprompter, that's, you know, not nearly as effective. So kind of getting those organic videos that you can put paid promotions behind that give someone a real voice is a much better tactic. Then I want to speak to some of the people that are in the fundraising profession here that, you know, it's unfortunate, but our donors are not thinking about us after work. They're not thinking about us on a daily basis. I know we love to think that our major givers are sitting at home right now thinking about the great things that we're going on to accomplish, but that's just simply not the case. So one way to touch those people without actually asking them for money is what we do is cultivation ads. So these are ads that we're just updating people on results that we're producing as an organization or as a candidate. And we're not necessarily asking for money. All we're trying to do is just stay in their newsfeed so we achieve a top of mind status with these people. And then, you know, like, for instance, this is Cliff Maloney in this video. And every time he goes to a donor meeting, he gets someone that mentions, oh, yeah, you know, I saw you in that video talk about those updated election victories or whatever. They may not know the whole story. They may not recall everything about that video, but that's actually not what's important. It's that hey, we stuck in their mind, and there's something in the back of their head there that they actually remember what we're accomplishing and that we're important to them and that they should give to the organization again. So let's talk about an online infrastructure. So your website, and I'm actually going to skip to this next part. So one thing that I see so many organizations fail to do correctly is place a good fundraising page on their website. Everyone seems to just botch this entirely. So this is an example of a terrible donation page. You have links all at the top that can direct someone to another page. This page also doesn't have remarketing pixels and things like that. So this is an example of a page that we do not want to send people to. There's multiple things that people can do. They can click the contact button. They can look at endorsements. The only thing that we want someone to be able to do when they land on our donation page is to make the damn donation. So that's why we always push people to using a tool where there's only one thing to do on that page, and that's to donate. The only way to get back to that website is to click the back button, but there's no like sign up for emails here. There's no look at the latest blog. This is just a direct call to action where we're leading them and giving them instructions about how to actually contribute to our organization. So this is one thing. If you take away anything from our kind of online fundraising talk here, is go take a look at your donation page. Are there other links on that page that direct someone elsewhere on the website? You need to go fix that. We like to use a tool called Antidote. Depends on what you call it here, but that's our favorite online fundraising tool, our donation processor. And you can include things like, you know, let's say I donate $50. Then a processor, if you're using upsells, you could even say, Tim, thank you so much for donating $50. Our organization counts on people like you to fund our activities, et cetera, et cetera. Would you consider making this a recurring contribution? Or would you consider doubling down today to help us reach our goal? And you'd be surprised that those upsells can actually generate quite a bit of revenue. So you want to make sure that your donation page actually produces donations. There's nothing else for someone to do besides donate on that page. And you want to perfect that page by adding upsells on there too. a CRM and a fundraising automation. So a lot of organizations, I feel like they made their choice of a CRM maybe 5 or 10 years ago, and they haven't really made an update ever since. So there's a lot of new tools out there that we really like to push people towards, but creating as much automation as you can for your fundraising process. You know, one thing, for instance, that we do for Young Americans for Liberty is if you've been cookied on the website and you visit a certain page, that will trigger an email to you automatically without me clicking any kind of button, but it'll shoot you a quick email that says, hey, Tim, I saw you were checking out so-and-so page. Let me know if you have any questions. If you'd like to contribute to actually help fund part of this effort, you can do so here. So there's other things you can do with email automation as well, such as sending stacked emails from an individual email account. So that way, those that are working in development, you can automate your follow-up to big donors. So that's a really cool tool that you can employ.
Sorry to interrupt you real quick. We just need to get to the very last intro. But for everyone who's really interested in hearing this, including Emily Dye, our policy director, who's just joined us in the room.
Yes, I've joined in because I heard this conversation, wanted to be a part of it.
Yeah, we'll definitely be coming back to this. I just want to make sure everyone gets their time to give their intro. So, very last but certainly not least, Chris, would you like to give us your introduction?
Yes, I do not have a presentation prepared, but I am here with Tim as part of Optimize Consulting, and something I want to go over some like the bigger picture items when it comes to digital fundraising that I think people fail to do. And you know, one of the best fundraisers out there was this guy called Jesus Christ, and he said, ask and you shall receive. And so if you're not out there asking, you know, getting content in front of your supporters that's asking people for donations, you're not going to get them. And so it's not a matter of just putting like a donate button at the bottom of an email, or, you know, posting an article here or there on social media, or even running, you know, some graphics on social media. You should be making the ask constantly to supporters and driving them into a funnel, whether it's email or text messaging, so that you can then create upsells. Another concept I will take a moment to discuss, and I think this is one Tim had in the presentation, is the notion that, you know, as much as we could go over all this strategy and tactics of digital, if your candidate for office or if your organization isn't doing things in real life, making real life policy changes, or, you know, doing real life activism, I don't care how many of these tactics or strategies or means of reaching out to people that you do, it's not going to matter, right? You can't just live online necessarily. And so, for example, you know, the vaping campaign in Australia just had a huge success, and they're partners with Australian Taxpayers Alliance. And so that is, you know, and because of that success, they have had some excellent fundraising results due to that. And so it's because they're out there actually changing policies that it also helps out and snowballs into fundraising as it is. So what I get a lot of times is these candidates who want to run for office and they don't want to do anything. They don't want to do anything else. They don't want to go out there and knock on doors. They don't want to go out there, or an organization that just wants to post like a policy proposal every so often online. Like, you got to be out there, you know, actually fighting battles and doing things in order to raise those dollars as well. And so it's really important that you just don't, you know, try to think that this is a miracle. You could just get people to pay you. That's called grifting. It's we don't want to encourage that. Well, we're all here because of liberty and believing in these ideas. So yeah, I hope you use these strategies to help you in that goal.
All right, fantastic. Well, thank you all. I think everyone who's here has been enlightened by everything, especially considering the Jesus Christ quote. So one of the things that I think we can get started on, and this I think ties into a lot of the points that you were making in your presentation before, is the concept of a funnel. And I don't know if traditional people who are in the more traditional marketing space have heard of what a marketing funnel or a lead funnel is. So do one of you want to take the lead on telling us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I can talk about a funnel as it relates to online fundraising. So, one thing in particular that we like to do is, so we get someone in our audience that we've determined that people that we're targeting. We then, our first goal is to either get them to engage with us online somehow, or to sign up for an email, or to donate. Obviously, it's great if we can just go from targeting to donate, but sometimes there's a little more work in there. But then it doesn't just stop at that first contribution. A lot of people really fail to identify people that can be larger givers. For instance, a big thing that we do for Young Americans for Liberty is a lot of people that donate $100 as their first contribution, we then do an annual giving capacity research on them. And we say, oh, wow, this person has given, from what we can tell online from public records, they've given $50,000 to charitable organizations over the last year. This person's annual giving capacity is potentially $50,000. So we then say, okay, we're going to get them through this funnel. We're going to make sure that they get thanked immediately. We automate the thank you, but then we also come on top of that and say, okay, the president's going to come in there, or one of the top development staff's going to come in there and say, hey, thank you so much. What motivated you to actually support the organization? And then we're putting them through a funnel that can last a month, it can last 3 months, it can last a year, depending upon the pitch that you're making to this person. But at some point, we're going to tell them, hey, thank you again so much. And I'm not asking for money right now, but I would love to come back to you in 6 months or a year from now with a detailed plan and ask you to give more to the organization and to actually upgrade that donor too. So don't think of your online fundraising as just trying to make the quick buck for the organization. Those donors can give more, but you're not going to do that unless you've built out a donor stage. So from prospect to thank you, to upsell, to maybe recurring, or to like meeting with the president or with a development staffer. But building out an actual funnel for these people is essential to make sure that you're turning that $100 gift into 1,000, into 5,000, or to 20,000.
Yeah, fantastic. Does anyone else want to make a point on the funnel?
Yeah, one thing you can do too, because I know here in the States we have programs that you can look up people's donations to different organizations. But if you're in a country that you can't do that, something you could consider doing, this is a little creepy, mind you, but you can, if they donate to your organization and they give you the address, as part of the donation process, then you can see, you can look up on Zillow or something, see like the cost of their neighborhood, their area. And if it's like a mansion, $1 million homes, then bam, this might be someone who has the potential to give a lot more.
It's also about building digital ecosystems as well. So if you've got an audience that you're specifically focusing on, it's about building and creating different ecosystem hubs for them. So for example, Facebook groups is a great way of herding the people into one area, talking about specific content and ideas and issues and policy items that might drive people to want to be compelled to do something or motivated by something that they see. So that's another way of herding together an audience and bringing them together to try and enact them to change or do something.
Yeah, really interesting. And one of the last things that we saw on Tim's presentation before I very rudely interrupted him was the automation process. So HubSpot is one of those platforms, kind of like ArtStation, where you can automate a lot of these processes. So as you're following someone through the funnel, you don't have to go in manually and do it, because if you have a large segmentation, a large base of leads, you probably don't want to be following up and checking out everything they're doing. So that's probably one of the things that people don't know too much about if they're not in the kind of inbound marketing space, is the concept of automation or workflows. Do you want to talk about that and how this fits into the broader inbound marketing structure?
Yeah. So in terms of like a workflow, businesses use this tactic as well. It's called lead nurturing, but kind of developing that path for what people are going to experience over the course of 12 months after they've contributed to your organization. So that's going to be something where you've actually plotted out point by point what you're going to do to actually to build that relationship. For instance, let's say that they, to give a more detailed version, they make a contribution. They receive an automated email that says, thank you so much for your contribution, etc. If it's someone that is potentially of a higher net worth that you can upgrade into making a $5,000 gift or a $50,000 gift, then the president shoots them an email or shoots them a text or gives them a phone call. Doesn't ask for money. Again, just trying to make that relationship. Maybe sets a meeting to try to meet with them, like, hey, I'm actually going to be in Minneapolis this weekend. I'd love to catch and try to get breakfast with you or grab 10 minutes of your time, something like that. Maybe it's sending them a gift that you send after 6 months of being a part of their organization, or sending a letter from someone that their contribution impacted and says, hey, Chris, thank you so much. This is what your gift did, X, Y, and Z for me. I can't thank you enough. So creating that relationship and what that looks like over the next 12 months, that's when you're building a really advanced development department where you're actually turning small gifts into bigger ones.
Sorry, we have a little bit of commotion happening, but yeah, that sounds really good, and that sounds really appropriate. Do any of you want to talk a little bit about this point, kind of like the email automation, or should we move on to another topic that you'd like to discuss?
Well, I mean, automation isn't something that we would recommend for digital campaigning from a normal campaigning perspective. Automation doesn't work for creating content. It doesn't work for making sure you're targeting the right audiences on different social media platforms. And a lot of conservative clients don't trust automation, and they don't trust that they can afford to pay for it as well. So it's a huge ask. Australians are very risk averse. Australian companies are very risk averse. And in my experience over the last 10 years, unless you're a really big company with more than 50 employees, don't even bother pitching automation unless it's for a company over 50 employees.
Yeah, automation, it does, there's some ups and downs to it. Obviously with automation, there's a little less personability. So there is that risk. However, I mean, like what you said, the bigger your organization, you may have to scale it more to where you can automate things. So an example of automation that we'll use sometimes is we've identified someone's a potential big giver. We then set up a 5-stage email that someone like my own email will actually send it. It won't be like a mass email. It'll actually be from mine. So if you reply to it, I get the message and I'm replying back to you. But basically what it does is I send, Greg, thank you so much for donating. Here's what we're about, et cetera. I'd love to catch up with you. Love to hear why you contributed. They don't respond for a week. Another email is sent automatically without me having to press a button. And it's sent, hey, Greg, following up on my email from last week, love to still catch up with you, et cetera, et cetera. Then you can branch it off, say like, okay, they've opened this email X amount of times, we got to give this person a call. Or, it just replied, it keeps sending an automated message, maybe 1 to 4 times or so. And the only thing that can break that automation is actually them replying to the message. So this is really big for development staffers, where I'm sure if anyone's in development, you've had this issue where you cannot get a hold of that big donor and it's a real hassle. So this builds in follow-up for you that it's a little difficult for any one human to remember to follow up with, hundreds of people at once, right? Like you just can't do that. So, but again, all that communication, it should try to be personable. If it's, dear, you want the email to read naturally, and it's like it's me sending an email to you. So you obviously add the first name variable, include their donation amount, things like that. So where it feels like an email that I could only ever send from me to you. And there's ways to incorporate those variables and that personability within an email, even with automation.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. And as we talk about leads and follow-up, I think one of the things that we should talk about, which were covered in some of the introductions, is the actual generation of leads. And social media, of course, is a really good way to do that. Now, I know that there are organizations that have some money to invest in people like you who can kind of handle a lot of the process for them. But for some of the people that might be in our audience and want to give this a try for themselves, what do you think some of the things that people can do starting out with this whole process, starting, let's say, tomorrow, that they don't necessarily need to get a big, fancy firm to do for them?
Well, it would be starting at a low bar. So you want to know what it is you're trying to achieve. What outcome are you trying to drive? And do you have any existing capital to change the hearts and minds of people you're trying to change? How do you build an audience? So what platforms does that audience use? And what kind of content are you going to create to elicit them to drive a reaction, do something about it? So build your audience, understand the issues, choose the right platforms, have a budget, even if it's a small budget, have a monthly budget or have at least a couple of $100. But ideally, if you're a company, you've got a few thousand that you can get started with. So those are the basics of what you can do tomorrow, but you need to be able to build your audience, understand who they are and what you're trying to ask them to do.
And I think one of the things that, especially me, I struggled with this before I kind of got into the marketing space, inbound marketing space, and learned how to do this is, let's say that I want to identify some people on Facebook and I want them to see my ad for my organization and join us for X, Y, or Z. How do you do a proper targeting of people? Because sometimes I think when you look at the Facebook ads platform, you have no idea what to click in there. Like, what do I click? Interest in politics, interest in tax. So do you, the experts in the room, have some recommendations for the novices?
I'll let one of them go.
Oh, go ahead, Carrington.
Oh, sure. Okay, sorry. Well, basically, you have to have a general feel for who your audience already is offline. So say you're a right-wing political activist group who's trying to convince the politicians to make a change in a particular policy. You know that you need something really clever and savvy to target those politicians or the staffers of those politicians. And you create that content, you go into Facebook Business Manager and you start playing with the audience detailed targeting module that they provide that you can play with. You choose a certain budget for how long you want that content to be pushed in front of those people in their news feeds. So once you've got the right audience set targeted, it will then go into people's news feeds based off of the spend that you're putting in and the platforms that they're using. So if you want to target them on Instagram or if you want to target them on Facebook, you can, and you can select those options. But you really need to have a good feel for who your audience is and what their interests are around a certain policy idea.
Yeah, I'll add to that. First person data is some of the best data that we use for fundraising. So, you could do interest targeting, but if that's more of like the top of the funnel type of, hey, we're trying to drive some new leads of people who might not never heard of us. But once they have gotten, maybe subscribed through email, maybe they like your Facebook page, you could target more specific data, such as like a customer file so people who signed up on your email list. You can also set up pixels to capture people when they visit your website. Those also make for good, like, donation ads. You can then, let's say, once you have this data of people over a few months after you've been interest targeting, what they're interested in, you can then, let's say you're targeting interest data, you get 800 people, 1,000 people signed up. You could take those same people, now that you have their emails, their first name, their last name, zip code. I would recommend getting that. And then you could re-upload those people into Facebook, and then you can create a lookalike audience, which will then kind of broaden your potentials to people who have similar characteristics. So a lookalike audience is essentially, if you're working for a Republican campaign, chances are your lookalike audience is going to be a bunch of, boomers who are pretty wealthy, and they all share these similar characteristics. As much as libertarians want to be individuals, this data just takes it and is like, all right, we're going to group y'all all into these like metrics and these characteristics. But it's really helpful. It's a really powerful feature that Facebook allows that some of the other platforms, I don't think they allow. Maybe if you're using like Adobe or something else, but yeah. What was that?
LinkedIn does.
Right, yeah. So you can take your data and then expand it in those different ways to target people.
Yeah, fantastic. So we are nearing the last 10 minutes of the conversation we're having, which has been really, really fascinating. So I think I'd just like to give you all a chance to kind of give your closing thoughts, tell us, what last tips or recommendations or strategy you'd suggest to the people that are listening now. So do you want to take this, Chris? Do you want to begin?
Yes. I would just say that if you're running a campaign, you want at bare minimum set up a ESP, like Tim said, set up a decent donation platform, because if you're using like PayPal and some of these other things, technically you could set up PayPal, in a good way, but most of the time, if it's just default, it's not going to be very good. So get, your basics down, get your donation platform down, get a basic, email service, even if it's MailChimp. It doesn't have to be super fancy if you're low budget. And then, set up your Facebook account. If you're doing Facebook, you have to get it verified now to run political ads, but it's not too difficult. It's just kind of a pain in the ass. But yeah, get your basics down and then target people through interest, build up that house file, and you can start, hitting them up for donations.
Yeah, really good stuff. And I suppose you do have to get verified in America. In Australia, luckily, it's a lot looser. It helps if you're registered or if you're verified, but luckily here we have a little bit more leeway, so we can be happy about that. Tim, would you like to give us your closing thoughts?
Yeah, I'll echo a few things back. Just take care of the basics. Get a donation page that converts. Get rid of those bad links at the top of the page. Just get a great donation processor that has upsells and can convert donors. But also take those donors and apply development methods to take that online fundraising and to funnel it into your major gifts. Online fundraising isn't just $20, $50, $100. You can actually convert those people to becoming major contributors to your organization through top of mind, cultivation ads, through email automation, through setting meetings with digital too. So there's a lot of things that development staff can do with online fundraising that wasn't really doable before. And in the age of COVID-19, with rising costs of mail and not being able to meet in person, learn digital fundraising to fund your organization and help implement liberty by raising more money.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you for that. And last but not least, of course, Carrington, would you like to take it away?
Sure. So mine is more from a holistic campaign perspective. make sure that you're going to articulate your messages really clearly to the audience that you know that you need to speak to, and ask yourself why you're doing it and what is the outcome you're trying to drive. Remember that audience is king, not content. Content is queen. So you need to have the right audience sets ready to go, identifying who your audiences are in your key areas around key policy issues or around the things that you want to achieve. Develop those message strategies for each of those cohorts. Execute across the digital channels that are relevant to them, that you think that your content is going to work really well with. And your spokesperson of your organization, see if you can leverage them. Use their personality on social media to leverage. If they're fun, charismatic, leverage that. If they're not and they're boring, find other ways. Use digital graphics if you have to. Prepare to plan and perform during a crisis. Have a response matrix ready to go of a key set of responses in terms of a crisis situation that might unfold in your campaign. And most importantly, don't be afraid to tell your own narrative. Don't let the media tell it for you. Tell it yourself through the digital communication channels that you have that are available to you. It's only you that gets to define your message, not anyone else.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for that. And we actually have some extra time for some questions. And our participants are not really that active in the question section, which is a bit of a shame. But I suppose I have a couple of questions that I can make on their behalf just before we leave. And so please, if you'd like to the speakers, if you can just all unmute your microphones, and there can be kind of a more natural back and forth. You talk about identifying the best possible social media networks. Perhaps it's not necessary for you to start getting on TikTok or on LinkedIn or something like that really early on, but maybe some other social networks like Facebook are super basic. So how do you think an organization can go about identifying the social networks where they should really start investing their time?
Well, it really depends on what kind of conversation they want to drive, what kind of two-way engagement they want to have. And that could be Facebook, where it is much more conversational these days, where it's more driven by the thoughts and ideas and the feel opinions of what people have. Or you would maybe want to do it through Instagram if it's more for a visual perspective and you want people to see what you're visually doing and trying to achieve. Or if you want to leverage a personality of your spokesperson, use TikTok if you think it's going to be good. And look, if it's something funny with a song that goes really well with it, then there you go. You've just created a huge following base that you can then leverage on other channels after that.
Yeah, to echo some of that back, identifying, knowing where your audience is already, where they already live. That's where you want to go for a lot of your content already. But there's something to be said too with if you don't start developing your Twitter following, or you don't start developing your Instagram page, a year later rolls by and you haven't started building out these social networks, it is a bit of a pain. It's developing a following online, but making that investment does pay off. And there's other things to know. Facebook, most people are on there, obviously, but typically you got to pay to play. Organic reach on Facebook is not what it used to be. But on LinkedIn, your organic reach is pretty great compared to Facebook. So, and Twitter, there's different things there too. Obviously, in terms of donors, it's just more of the world where I live in. They're not all on Twitter, but that's another tool that you can use to generate media too. So, figure out where your audience exists. Start developing those followings on social media on all accounts if you have the resources to do it. But basically just find the best way to leverage each one of them.
Sorry, I'm speaking with a muted mic. Chris, since you're kind of last here, I'm going to ask you this question, which came in on the group chat. We haven't had many, but this one is, I think, a really interesting question. Scott Henning asks, what impact do you think Facebook's decision to let people turn off political ads will have on political advertisers?
Yeah, this is a very new development, and we have yet to see the impact of it. It is, from my understanding, an opt-out, and I don't know, most of the most of your donors are still going to be your kind of older people. So I haven't seen a drop off yet because I don't think they know about it for one. I don't think they even know how to find it. So that's good for us. And but it does go to show, there is, Facebook's also considering. Yeah, I work on a lot of political campaigns, so this is relevant. But Facebook's considering stopping political ads 8 days or so before the election in the U.S. And Twitter's already banned political campaign ads. So it does go to show that as much as email's still important. As much as it's kind of like the snail mail of the internet, you still need other ways to reach people. So you need that email. It's still one of the most important ways to reach people, especially for fundraising. We get most of our donors through email.
There is a workaround as well. So if you can't use advertising, you can probably use Facebook groups. And ideally, you may have set up Facebook groups, or you may know Facebook groups that could be relevant to a political campaign. And that's a great way of posting some organic content that gets everyone talking, because the algorithm ranks higher for Facebook groups than, say, an ordinary post from a page. So look for the workarounds on the digital channels that you can try and make people or bring people in to your political strategy. I don't think that Facebook have rolled that out here yet to opt out. I'm not sure if they're even going to do that in Australia. I think, though, what Chris has said is right, though, regarding the 7 days prior to election day. We do that already here for broadcast media. And as broadcast media is dying, it's quite plausible that either, if it's not the Australian government that does it, it might actually be the tech player itself doing it. And we all know that no one was spending political money on Twitter anyway. So Twitter's little virtue signaling announcement was useless to political organisations in Australia.
Yeah, very good points. Tim, please.
Yeah, I was just going to say, overall, the social platforms are becoming more and more hostile to free speech. And that's just something we have to recognize, and building those followings on social media now is really important. That way your organic reach does reach some people, but don't just count on Facebook. Don't just count on LinkedIn, because one of these days they could just ban ads. So develop all those social platforms.
Definitely. I think diversifying is a really important step to take. Well, I'd love to let this conversation go on for 20 hours more, but we are nearing the beginning of the next breakout session. So even though we have 3 minutes on this, I think we're just gonna call it early so that we can have a smooth transition. Thank you so much, Chris, Tim, Carrington. This was a fascinating conversation, and we'll see you during the rest of Friedman.